Welcome everyone to this episode of Mentor Monday. My name is Morgan Manifacier. I am a current DMA student in voice opera at Stony Brook University, and it is my great privilege to welcome our Dr. Jeremy Little, who just joined us on the voice faculty. I'll say a couple of things about his career as an introduction. Jeremy is a Grammy-nominated tenor and voice teacher who's had an outstanding and diverse performing career. As a principal artist, he has notably sung with the Metropolitan Opera, New York City Opera, Wolf Trap Opera, Florentine Opera, Opera Theater of St. Louis, and Des Moines Metro Opera. He is also a full-time member of the Metropolitan Opera Course since 2008, where he has been on stage for over 1,500 performances. He's earned degrees from Louisiana State University, the Juilliard School, and recently Stony Brook University for his DMA, where he now serves as artist in residence since last fall. Welcome, Jeremy. Thanks so much for being with me and spending
Thanks,
time
Morgan.
talking and looking at some questions that we have from the voice department and from me as well. I'm super thrilled to be with you. And I want to start with this question. Since we just talked about your great performance career, what are some of your most cherished memories on stage?
Oh, wow. I knew you were going to ask that, and it's still a hard question. Let's see, going back, one of the earliest things I did was a double production of Carmina Burana and Cavalleria Rusticana
Yeah.
with Mobile Opera in Mobile, Alabama, and their symphony and the ballet there. And the Carmina was staged with ballet. And that was such a rare thing to be exposed to. That was one of the earliest ones. There were several solo performances along the way that were special. I did Romeo and Juliet with Anchorage Opera, and being in Alaska and singing that music, it was magical. And I've had many unforgettable ones with the chorus at the Met, because
Sure.
I'll be 5, 10, 15 feet away from these legends, and
Right.
you'll see them have a really amazing night where they're just in the zone and they're having the one of the best nights they've ever had singing a role, and you're 10 feet away, and it's
I'm
just,
sure.
yeah. So one of those that stands out is a Russian tenor, Vladimir Galuzin.
Mm.
And I guess the last time he was there, we did Queen of Spades by
Wow.
Tchaikovsky. And I think he'd been singing that role for like 15 to 20 years. And he had obviously it was in his native language and he had done it a lot, but he just had such mastery of it. And just the fact that you're always learning something from these people. So I'd say that kind of, covers about a 20-year span of memories there.
It must be one of the great things about singing in the Met course is to have access to rehearsing with these amazing singers and conductors, obviously, and musicians. And that must be such a great learning experience because, I love what you have in your bio that we're continually learning, right, through
Yes.
our careers and through our performances. And that must be just such an amazing way to learn
It
continually.
really is, and one of the things that I wasn't expecting was, we have several rehearsal rooms at the Met that are about the same size as the stage. And to hear things and see things dramatically and vocally that may work in a rehearsal room, and then when you get to a house the size of the Met, with standing room, I think the capacity is close to 4,000 people.
Yeah.
So to see, adjustments that are made, and to see the singers kind of realize it the first time they step on that stage, and to be just musically and technically smart enough to make that adjustment on the fly. That's one of the great learning experiences, is just having that fluidity as artists, and not being, locked into decisions that we made before. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's very fascinating, especially as you and I continue working together. It's like there's so many things that you can do and can tweak,
Yeah.
right? Vocally and technically, uh, and always thinking about how this will carry out on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm stopped up today. And that's something we deal with. You know, I play the piano a little. I don't usually worry about a runny nose if I'm playing the piano, but it's something, you know, we have all these, this is why we all go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We have to change a vowel here and there because, you know, you're having a sinus day. Yeah. Go back to you though.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about the fact that you took a leave of absence from the Met 1 year to do your DMA a few years ago at Stony Brook, and so you have, as a teacher now, you have the unique perspective of having done your DMA at Stony Brook before coming back as faculty. So as someone who knows the program well and from a student's perspective, what is unique about the school, and particularly about the DMA program, that maybe prospective students should know about or would be interested to hear from you?
Well, the thing that that struck me very early on and stayed with me the whole time was this a very general with all of the teachers seemed to be that they were asking themselves what's best for the students. And as common sense as that may sound, I don't think that it's a very commonly found mentality out in academic institutions.
Yeah.
And schools have things to worry about, like they have bills to pay, and they have their own concerns. But to have that mentality from your instructors in a history class and a theory class, and I remember going to Perry after an ear training class one day, and I said, I can tell that every year that you've taught this, that you check in with yourself at the end and say, what can I do better next year? Because it's just such a mindful, conscientious, thoughtful process to go through something as rudimentary as a sight singing class. And that I had that from all of my teachers there. David Lawton was my advisor, and when we're at the Met and we do Il Trovatore, we're doing the critical edition that David did. That's David's. Right. So this just blew my mind. He was for 40 years before that, he was being published doing these things. So to have someone of that stature sit down and say, oh, let's talk about what you're going to do for your lecture recital or something like that, that was just, I was like, let's maybe don't, because that was one big part. The other part was that it was, I heard a lot of people over the years say that you don't hear many people improving vocally when they go to get a doctorate because they're so busy doing everything else. And I don't find that to be the case at Stony Brook. I heard people before and after and thought that there was something good happening with the instruction here. There was something good happening with the balance between academic and performance workload. It was my experience. I felt like I really flourished with Brenda. I studied with Brenda Harris, the other voice faculty member. Love her. She did some really great things for me, and we have 6 recitals. I think that's important to know. That's a lot of performing, but you're coming to get a performance degree.
For sure.
That being said, the academic portion of it is nothing to laugh about. It's an R1 institution, and the demands are pretty high, very high. The biggest difference, I think, between Stony Brook and some of the other universities that I considered for a doctorate was we don't do like what you might call a traditional dissertation. I'm not writing a 200-page dissertation.
Right.
That being said, I probably composed 125 to 150 pages of original content for different classes. The lecture recital, as you well know, is a huge undertaking. Your final recital, which we call the final dissertation recital, needs a proper 20 to 25 pages of research to go along with the material that you're going to be presenting in that, which is also accompanied by an oral exam for that recital, 2 hours. And so I felt like it checked off all the important boxes. It had a lot of balance that I was looking for. And I just loved the faculty and the whole energy. It's not a huge department. We're not talking about, an IU or an LSU or Florida State, right, or one of these, huge programs. But that's a good thing for me. I liked the tight knit nature of it. That was just, it was a little village, the group of us, as I'm sure has been your experience.
It certainly feels like that, and it's like such a refreshing experience to be surrounded with both, you know, teachers, but also colleagues and peers who are continually rooting for you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Especially
absolutely.
in the singing world, it's a rare thing to like to know that the people who are studying alongside you are your friends and they really wish you
Hmm.
like the best and to
Yeah.
sing your best and to do your best is a treasure, I think, on its own, for sure. And I agree with you 100% about the performance aspect of the DMA. When I came in, I had done a lot of work that it's not always connected to performance. I did a lot of musicology in my master's and things like that. So I actually was looking for more technical advice and more performance experience, more experience on stage as well, you know, recitals, but also in the operas that we do,
Hmm.
you know, 2 operas a year, and a lot of varied repertoire in that opera repertoire as well. Um, so I love that it was your experience as well, and I think it's really a fantastic program in all these different aspects that you mentioned. Um,
Well, and to go along with something you said about the musicology studies you had before, you know, while we continue that, I felt there was a like a concentrated effort to connect those studies to your performing. So you had an informed performance,
for
you know,
sure.
and a case in point was um, my lecture recital was on Schwanengesang by Schubert, and and one of the things that I got into in my studies was realizing, you know, he died of syphilis, but he what they treated syphilis with back then was a mercury bath. And go read the side effects of a mercury bath at some point. I think it's the side effects rival the effects from the syphilis. So he was, you know, it was a tortured final, you know, final run there for him. And also to learn that he saw life as reality is harsh. And so usually when he was writing in a reality mode, it was in a minor key. This is a general rule. Obviously, with 600 songs, there's going to be an exception or two. And if it was in a major key, many times it was an escape. And escapes for him were, you know, dreams, daydreaming, or actual dreams, death, suicide, things like that. And so to take that knowledge and look at something like Duchamp and or you know some of the standalone songs and the stuff that I did in Schwanengesang, it it's just an informed decision. So it's taking this knowledge and saying like, oh, you know what, these two things can communicate, and here's how. So
Exactly.
that was definitely a Stony Brook thing.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. All connecting and a holistic kind of approach to music.
Absolutely,
Fully
yeah.
agree. Next question we have is what advice would you give to your 30-year-old self and other singers who are 30 right now?
um, that's a great question, and I'm trying to buy myself time by saying that. You know, I think the reality is that we have to be well rounded. You know, we have to be. You can't. I mean, there's the occasional performer that you're like, okay, that is a once in a generation voice. They can just worry about performance and they'll be fine. And you know, in our world, if someone has a really active, you know, at a house's career for 10 or 15 years, that's a long career. 10 or 15 years, you know, and that's not a very long time. So I would say just to find, you know, explore very with a very open mind, like what else can you enjoy doing with these with the skill set, you know, what about teaching, what about opera chorus work, which for me I didn't know that I would enjoy, but once I got into it, I loved it because you know I go out and I'm in the Ring Cycle and I'm in Aida and these operas that otherwise I very well would have had no experience with, and to, you know, to be a part of these amazing shows like that. So that to just explore things like that. You know, we've got a world now that because of Instagram and the internet, social media is a huge part of it, and I know there are a lot of artist accounts with that are helping companies. As a young tenor friend of mine, in Oklahoma right now, and he did a double degree in economics and vocal performance.
Mm,
Very, very bright young man, obviously, but his idea was, we need people running opera companies
yeah,
that get both sides,
yeah,
not just treating it like a business. So I would say, take whatever you think your passions are, and kind of see what can connect around the edges. Try all these different things, and don't limit yourself. Don't paint yourself in too much of a niche. At 30, I was exploring some pretty niche repertoire. My voice sat a little higher than the average tenor
mm,
my age. So I was looking at, you know, these like even like French bel canto things, which are
right.
never done here in the States. I wasn't, yeah, I wasn't prepared to move to Europe and do like a fest contract. It would have probably served me well, but it was, it was fun, and I learned a lot along the way. But at the same time, to just constantly be open to learning how else you might use these skills. We're, in the class we had with Cal Marrero earlier in the fall semester,
Mhm.
and Kyle mentioned like how great singers are, especially at so many different things. We think fast on our feet. We're used to feedback and working with feedback. So now he's a president of Georgia Southern University. He's probably the only DMA in voice that's the president of a university,
Yeah,
and I think that just goes to say a lot about us. Is you know one of your group that's coming out in the next couple of years with doctorates might be a university president at a place we're applying for a job in a few years.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so an open mind, and just keep learning, keep going, try new things, just
Yeah.
try it all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think it's so important to have as many tools, right? As
Yeah.
many tools as you can afford, and yeah, that's great. I think not pigeonholing yourself into
Yeah.
one thing is also very good advice, which is somehow very easy for us to do. Like our voice does something very well, immediately we want to do just that, so we
Mhm.
at least can try to make a career or something. But I think you're right.
Well,
I think
you can do that, and
yeah,
and that's I want to be just clear that I'm saying that, like, do the thing that you're special at,
right,
and look at these other things,
for sure.
because if you've got that thing that you're good at, you should, definitely exploit that for yourself and for, anybody else that might be interested, and the other things. That's
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to be misunderstood there.
This is a great topic because the next question sort of goes along this idea of a variety of tools and different things to think about. What avenues would you encourage students to pursue that don't necessarily fit with the traditional young artist program pathway?
That's another good question. Now, when you say, let's clarify this. When you say don't necessarily fit, what is that? What do you take that? Why does this person not fit? Or do you want to just say broadly speaking?
Right. I'm not sure because this is not my question, but I
Okay.
think it implies, you know, usually it's bachelor's, master's, and then maybe like a residency in an opera house, for
Hmm.
example.
Yeah.
And these spots nowadays are just so scarce and so competitive just because there's just, an outpouring of singers out there.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but probably, yeah, these residential, usually they're 1 or 2 years in opera houses or even the summer programs
Yes.
um, in different programs like that, different young artist programs.
Well, okay. So you got a few reasons that someone might not be, moving on to the final round and getting accepted in some of these. Um, let's assume the person is very talented. One thing could be like, if it's a lot of time, larger voices just
Mm,
don't hit their maturity level till later, and we're in such like a pressurized society to try to, everyone wants to find the next big thing. They the stages of someone's career. Have you ever heard this? It says, it's who's Morgan Manifacier. Uh, get me Morgan Manifacier. Get me someone like Morgan Manifacier, and then who is Morgan Manifacier, right? So
I remember this. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a very like American approach, and good or bad, it's what it is. It's what we're dealing with. Is and there's another thing that a teacher told me. He said in the old days they used to say tenors either had their career before 30 or after 30. And I certainly experienced that. I remember doing competitions with guys that, we in our mid late 20s, 27, 28, they just sounded ready to go out and sing Rodolfo at the Met. And, one of them, in fact, did. And I'm not going to go too far into that detail, just to say that I saw some evidence to that. So all that to say that some voices will settle later. And for those, or for ones that maybe they started out in a different discipline and came to singing a little later. If they're not getting in because for whatever reason they're not ready, there's so much that can be done. The biggest, I feel like, overlooked shortcomings that I see are languages. Now this, your French is quite good, I have to say.
It all comes from my mama.
But languages is a really big one, and it's going to cost a little money, but you can get pretty far along just doing things like Duolingo and and that's learning the vocabulary and the conjugations and whatnot in cases. Then adding to that, like watching movies in that language and just getting a sense for the flavor of that. Where does it sit in the mouth? When there's, and so when we sing, we talk about this in our lessons a lot. You can't necessarily sing the way you would speak it, but you want it to be close enough. You want it to sound. And if you don't really know what a French person would sound like saying a line, then how do you don't have a baseline. You don't really have like a foundation for that. So languages would be the biggest thing. The next thing would be some movement classes, and just getting comfortable with your body, in your body, and taking those movements and coming back to your arias and scenes and practicing, like if someone learned to juggle, they might juggle balls while they're singing one of their arias, or just do some physical things to kind of break them out of being locked in, just to add that balance and that spontaneity, the freedom, instead of getting locked in. So I would say role research is obviously another one. Put together some recitals. Recitals are so easy compared to everything else to put things together. You can learn all of your music. You can, if you're paying out of pocket, you can minimize the financial impact for, by learning the music on your own, and finding a pianist that wants to do it as well. And find a church or a venue somewhere that says, oh yeah, we do this something every Wednesday at lunch. And you say, okay, I'm cheap or free or whatever, and go in and get a capture, get a video, an AV capture, put the stuff you like on YouTube. There's so many things you can be doing to kind of build up. So that kind of leads me to the biggest point of this, which is, in this day and world, like, you have to be CEO of your company, of Morgan Manifacier Incorporated. You're the CEO. And if we don't have that approach, it's kind of like, sticking your head in the sand and saying that this doesn't exist. No, this exists, and this is how it is. And even when you have a manager, you still have to have this mindset. A manager just means you've added someone onto your executive suite team.
Yeah, your team. Exactly.
Yeah. Along those lines of treating this like a business, the business that it is, have a small team of people you trust. It could be a family member, a best friend, a coach or teacher, but not too many people, because you know how it goes when we consider something and we think about a subject. Should I take this role? Should I learn this aria? Should I present myself on social media? Path A or path B or path C. You hear all these voices in your head telling you, and those are the voices of the people that you gave some power to at some point. It was a voice teacher, or a coach, or a mentor of some type. So narrow down that list to voices that you can really trust, because those are going to be the people that both literally and psychologically that you're listening to and hearing, and that's it's really an invaluable way to approach the whole thing, whether you're getting into yaps traditionally or not. I think those last few points, most of these points actually go along with that. You can make all of this progress without the yap, and that this is my last one of the soapbox, and I promise I'll stop. You think about the way that we're set up in the United States to learn, and I'm sure other places as well, but my experience is United States, and that is to learn something, I go to a classroom, and there's a teacher that teaches me how to do that thing from kindergarten to through college,
Mm-hmm.
and learning, like breaking our minds out of that mold, changing our paradigm to say, I can teach myself a lot. Like at some point, you're going to need a teacher. At some point, you're going to need guidance, mentoring, coaching of some sort. But teach yourself. Go read a book on small business management. Read a book on marketing. Read a book on social media strategies. And that's you becoming your own marketing advisor for your own company. Really, all this is about taking things into your own hands and not sitting there. We have such a mentality of like, I'll learn this when I get accepted into a program or into a school or into a classroom where someone will teach me. It's just, it's unreliable, and it's becoming a thing of the past. So
Yeah.
that's my soapbox.
I really like what you say about forming a team. I think that's super valuable, and I think not emphasized enough actually somehow. But it is a difficult industry for a lot of reasons, and I think singing, particularly in classical music, because it's like you are the instrument, so it's like it's so tangled with emotional and like you said, psychological things, that it's like if somebody tells you like this doesn't sound good, there's a very specific kind of a personal aspect on this. So if you have a team, and I like to use like the word or the expression like a support system that can like really help you grow in like a fruitful way and in a nurturing way, I think that's super important, because then you're just kind of a lone wolf, trying to fight out the world, and it's just you make it too hard on yourself almost, and you don't set yourself up for success in that way either, if you don't have people that you can really trust.
Absolutely. It's it's very important that at least one person on that team will be blatantly honest with you.
Yeah, for sure.
No matter what.
For sure.
It's the vulnerability of the whole thing, that if you open yourself up to criticism from 25 people or 2,500 people, it's going to affect your voice. It's going to affect you as an artist, and probably not in a positive way. It's going to be a roller coaster ride.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to maintain that vulnerability, but we also have to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Is what it gets down to. But with at least one person on your team that will come up to you, say you do a recital, and say it wasn't great. Well, they're not going to come up to you after, because they care about you. They're not going to come up to you right after, but maybe 48 hours later, they might say, let's go get lunch. Let's talk about the recital. And they're, at some point when they know the time's right, they're going to say, we need to talk about these things. I think you need to work on address these things. So that's the only thing I would add to that. I'm sure you agree with that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the honesty part.
Yeah, you have to be honest, and you have to have that trust relationship, right, where you can be honest and know that the feedback that you receive is not meant to hurt you. It's meant to build you up, right? It's better your instrument and everything. I remember years ago I did this audition for, I don't even remember what it was for, but I remember just having a terrible audition, and the person who was listening was like, I love your voice, and I think like really like almost like obnoxiously like praising in his feedback, and he was like, I can fix your voice in like 6 months, and like what I want you to do is to not sing for the summer, like 2 months, not sing, not sing at all. And I was so puzzled by this feedback. And I went to my teacher and I was like, do you know this guy? Like, and he was like, yeah, he does this all the time. Like, he just tries to steal students that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you have to be surrounded with people who care about you enough that they will tell you also, like, beware of people who try to take advantage of you in that way.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you have to be very, you have to have both your eyes open of all the things like that you're going to encounter, absolutely going to, and all the while not becoming cynical.
Yeah.
That's the balance, like to
Balance.
have the realistic view without it tainting your worldview. Yeah,
for sure. Going back to teaching a little bit.
Yes.
You started teaching at Stony Brook last fall, so we were already fully online. And so one of our question is, what is it like teaching totally brand new students on Zoom for the first time?
Oh man, it's a riot. You and I don't. Well, we decided maybe we met one time in person,
Right.
but my mind was totally different. It was when I was still a student. I was probably wondering what the traffic was going to be like driving back into the city. Okay, so teaching Zoom was new.
Yeah.
And one of my very close friends is a vocal scientist and a voice teacher, baritone, and he has spent a lot of time giving presentations on all the technology involved. And so I'd had several conversations with him, and I think I was pretty well aware of the limitations, and what we'd be looking at. But the thing that worked for me, that helped, was I asked all of you, send me some clips of you singing recently, because if we wait until we're in the Zoom meeting, I'm getting a camera microphone, or some people use like a lapel mic, or an earpiece that has a mic built in, and that's okay. But the room recordings was kind of what I wanted to get a sense of. That was the closest in my mind I could get to this. So that helped kind of prepare me for what to kind of know how to siphon what was coming over the Zoom meetings, and I've been so blown away, because all of you you've kept your intensity and commitment levels up so high, and I don't know how you do it. I mean, it's we get a lot done. And one of the other teachers at Stony Brook, I think it was one of the string players, said, I think we're getting more done now because we're trying to listen that much harder, than normally. We're used to just being in a room and hearing and saying, okay, yes. Yeah. But now we're so worried we're going to miss something. We're like leaning in the whole time, like, I got to catch everything. So it's fun. I will say it's still not, nothing's going to replace being live and doing that. The fun thing is also hearing the same singer in different rooms, because sometimes over the holidays someone may have traveled, and it's like, oh wow, you got your overtones sound great, and then you realize they're in a room that has no carpet, or no paintings on the wall, and it's like, okay, we're figuring some things out. But it's good. You find, and I'm sure you have too, because you're teaching online as well, you find specific vernacular that works with online. You find some things that you kind of know ahead of time you're not going to really be, it's not going to really translate, and so you just kind of shift your language over to Zoom specific, as well as that's specific to that student.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Is that I was going to ask, would you agree with that from your experience?
Yeah, I think so. And there's there are so many different things that you can get done on Zoom, while you're sacrificing, you have to sacrifice some of the room sounds that you would expect, out of working in person. But there's a lot of things that you can still pick up on, the consistency of the resonance and the legato, your many different things, and languages as well, is one of the things that you talked about before. I think that's that's super important. It is hard for some people, because of the space. Sometimes they don't really have a space to practice. So that's the main challenge that I've faced.
And their Wi-Fi connection speed.
Exactly.
It's
All of a sudden,
so, yeah, it's so inconsistent. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, absolutely. Teaching, talking about teaching. One of our last, we have two more questions. One of the last question is, do you have vocal stamina advice for singers who have to both teach and sing or perform in the same day?
Yes. Now, this all depends on the demands of your performance. Am I going to go out and sing a couple of duets on a concert, an aria? Am
Mhm.
I going out to sing Nemorino that night? For me personally, is it an Aida night or
Right.
Turandot? Because Aida and Turandot were just nonstop. And it really the performance is going to always have to take precedent over your day. That's
Yeah, I agree.
our duty, right? But the stamina thing is really important. One of the things that I learned in the chorus was how to pace, how to mark, and how to constantly be monitoring that. Because when I was singing solo stuff, many times, if I got a good night of sleep, and maybe went for a jog to warm my body up, I could, you know, things worked. But then when I have these days that may be a 3 hour rehearsal in the morning, a 3 hour rehearsal in the afternoon, and then sometimes a 5 or 6 hour opera, like if we're doing Meistersinger,
Mm.
that's another big night. So if I did, uh, Donna Delago rehearsal in the morning, and then that afternoon we were in an Aida rehearsal, and then that night I performed Die Meistersinger. It's that's a tough day. You have to
Yeah.
constantly be monitoring,
Hmm.
constantly. And sometimes, like one of the rehearsals might be with orchestra. You really have to sing out with orchestra, um, so that the conductor and the orchestra and the music staff in the hall get a sense. So there are times that you can't completely pull back and off the voice, but it is just that constant monitoring of like, am I singing with too much tension at this
Yeah.
moment? Am I singing healthily, efficiently? Am I focusing on the long game with my voice? And without getting too technically worded with all of this, I think that's it. Is we have to, coming back to one of the points earlier, is we have to teach ourselves, and that's one of the things I think I try to talk about in our lessons a lot. Is, do you understand why I'm asking for this and what it does and what it
Yeah.
accomplishes? Now take that and like, record yourself, watch yourself in a mirror, like learn to kind of analyze yourself on the fly. And yeah, that's my biggest uh, su- suggestion with that is
Yeah.
constantly monitor yourself, learn how to mark.
Yeah.
There are multiple ways of marking. Some people mark on the pitch, but singing kind of like off the
Softly.
voice.
Yeah.
For tenors, I don't think that that's the best thing for
Doesn't
us.
work. It doesn't work for me at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard most tenors say that. Some tenors like to sing down an octave.
That's what I
That's
usually do myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I even met one tenor who I thought he has a really good sense of his voice and of singing technique, and he marks nowhere near the pitch. He's focused on text and rhythm.
Wow.
And he said, because in his reasoning for that was he didn't want to get bad habits formed,
I see.
and he felt like if he marked too many times, then to come back to the
Get
normal
used
way,
to it.
that too much of an adjustment. So I
Yeah.
think all of those have merit, and you find what works for you.
Mhm.
uh but it gets down to the voice too. Some voices are just made of steel. I've worked with some guys that can just sing 100%, which I think, like, don't ever go past 85%. Like, once you're past 85%, no
Yeah.
one feels comfortable.
Yeah. For
Not you don't feel comfortable. The person next to you and the audience, there's no way they feel comfortable if you're at 100%. It's like, is it going to fall off the cliff?
Correct.
Is the tightrope going to break? Yeah. So yeah, that's my feelings on that.
Yeah. My biggest thing is always teaching online, because somehow because of the medium, you don't rely always on the same kind of phonation that you would if you're just talking to a person in the same room. You tend to kind of ride the chords a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So I have to constantly catch myself just like speaking really on the breath and really being aware of my airflow when I'm teaching online, because then I feel like I'm just tiring the voice too much, by just speaking maybe more loudly than I would if I was in the same room.
You're absolutely right. And I can feel myself doing it right now. I speak lower, on a lower pitch than I should. It's just, it's a very typical thing. So, I've heard a lot of people say they always warm up before they teach a voice. I mean, before they teach a class. If they have a full day of voice lessons, they warm up before that and in between. So that's a very smart way to just kind of bring ourselves back to what is our training, and that is like how to like efficiently and healthily use this right here. So if we're not using it all the time, I'm sure it carries over into our singing sometimes as well if we're not careful. So that's an excellent point you bring up.
Yeah, for sure. So our last question, and again, thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing your knowledge and your insight for all of our DMA students and everybody looking for more information about Stony Brook in general. What other activities / hobbies / passions do you enjoy doing outside of music and singing?
Oh, wow. I mean, I love food. And I hate, I like hate the term foodie because it's just like such a, but, and I love balance and mixtures of things in life. And I love like high-low mix, and I love going sometimes to a friend's house and having like some really elevated dish with some non-elevated, and I love restaurants that do like they take street type vendor foods and kind of bring them up. So I can join the millions of others that say I love eating, but I love traveling and seeing things. I've always loved road trips. I loved them in high school, in college, and now with everything kind of locked down, it's so easy to just get in the car and drive to see family in Texas or drive down to DC or Charleston, internationally as well as domestically. But I don't like the idea of being somewhere and never going and seeing. There's a famous quote, and I think it was St. Augustine that said, he who lives and doesn't travel only reads one chapter of the book, some or only one page of the book, some like 17-year-old 100 quote that talks about like how important it is to explore different cultures and countries and experiences. That's I love that. So besides that, I love my friends, and I'm somebody that has like a few close friends, and I've always just been someone that loved, hey, let's just get together and hang out and cook a meal and chat, whether it's around a fire or at someone's house or whatever. So I enjoy that that connection with people. It's a very specific, like one-on-one or two-on-two. Once it gets more than 3 or 4 people, I feel like it's a little too big. I always say that, and people say, but you're an opera singer, you get on a stage in front of 4,000 people, and I can't explain it to you. That's just the way I'm wired. Yeah.
I miss that too, being able to see friends and everything. It's been almost like 10 months, right, since we've been on socially distancing and stuff like that. It's I find that it's such a breath of fresh air when you see somebody that you care about face to face, and now it's like 6 feet away and with masks, but it's like there's nothing like it, right? That's kind of how we were created. We're built to be social creatures and love each other and be with each other and stuff. So I look forward.
That's why we do this.
Yeah, correct. And all this music communicates that,
and it's really interesting. I'll mention this. I watched an interview the other day. There was a concert that it was Joyce DiDonato and Jonas Kaufmann and one other person, I can't remember who right now, but Jonas was talking, and he said what's struck him through all of this has been that he realizes how important the connection with other people is with the audience, and how having done so many virtual performances has really He never realized that about himself.
Yeah.
And he thought he was one of these people that was like, oh, we do it for ourselves. I do it for me. But you don't. You may think you do, but then when everything's taken away and you feel that sense of emptiness, and it's like a one-sided conversation, you realize that it is a conversation that you wanted to have. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. I remember he was doing this concert in this, like, I think it was with Helmut Deutsch, I think, some kind of, I think
Yes.
he was singing maybe like Schumann, Dich Liebe or something like that. And at the end, it was like, yeah, this is not what it's supposed to be. We miss
Yeah.
you guys, you know?
Yeah. Where's the roar of applause? You know.
Yeah, right. It's all
Or
about
if someone cracks and no one laughs, you know. I mean, it's the other side of the coin's just as bad.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for your time.
Absolutely.
This
Mark.
has been just a joy and a privilege again for me to speak with you and share.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much. And I think let me see. Yeah, that's all the questions we have. If you have questions about the Stony Brook music department, reach out to us and to go to our website to see information about the degrees. And we wish you to be well and healthy. Thank you all. Goodbye.